This is a story about Bode's autoimmune diagnosis. He started out the school year in his freshman year in high school at Lakes Community High School, where he was a normal freshman. He was in karate or taekwondo. On his first day of school, he was ready to go with all the things he would need with COVID restrictions, a mask, water. He tried out for the track team and was going to do cross country. Made it to a couple of events. He was a normal freshman kid, class of 2024. Playing in the backyard with his brothers like no care in the world. Always hanging out with everyone, having fun. Doing lots of work for me around the house. He built things for me, washed the deck. When I needed something, he'd say, "Sure, Mom, I'll do it," and thumbs up, and he would go and do that for me. He had so much energy. He painted the rails on the house in the front. This was all in August of the year 2020, 2021. His brothers and siblings would come to visit. He was just a happy-go-lucky kid, not a care in the world. Very helpful, very smart, ambitious. He helped me build a wall-to-wall unit in his brother's room with no problem, still full of energy to take care of all the 5 cats and a guinea pig and do online learning because COVID had shut them down to remote learning and hybrid model of going in every 3 weeks. So he was busy doing all his online work, starting to complain of headaches, of course, but still in a pretty good mood. About September, things started to change. He was no longer so happy. He started to really have bad migraines and started to sleep a lot. He became moody, and his brothers would joke around with him, and he was no longer happy. So I took him to the doctor. He was going through a growth spurt. He wasn't eating well. He was going to the bathroom a lot. I thought, well, maybe he needs some allergy testing done and maybe get his eyes checked. So we had the full gamut panel, nothing. And we did find out he needed glasses, and he had never needed glasses before. But he was so tired, always sleeping. So we went back to our doctors, and they suggested we go to the ER because he was so dehydrated. And after leaving there, we still had no answers. He was just very tired, dehydrated, going to the bathroom all the time, and trying to do his online work, but he just couldn't do it because he was just so fatigued. His body was aching. He was going through puberty. Maybe he had COVID, so we went for another COVID test. And that didn't pan out, so back to work, trying to do his work. And he became sick with more weird ailments, this rash that was all over his body. And it wasn't something bumpy. It was like blood coming to the surface, and was described as petechia or something, where your blood vessels actually come to the surface. Some people with leukemia might have this. So I started getting paranoid and researching everything, but I'm not a doctor. So again, we went to the doctor and another doctor. And our primary kept referring us to specialists. But yet he still was tired. He still had rashes. He still was complaining of pain. So we went in and we had a colonoscopy and endoscopy done by a gastroenterologist after we were referred to him. With an HMO, I had to always go back to the primary care, get a referral. And he started really going downhill from there. When we found out, yes, he did have some problems, gastritis, esophagitis, a lot of erosion in his intestines in and out of his stomach area. So we were going to change his diet, dairy-free. and put him on a plan for irritable bowel syndrome and acid reflux and GERD. So those were the things. We were going to just try some dieting, and maybe that was the fatigue problem. Maybe that was just all the pain problem, and the eye problem was from being online. Who knew? I don't know. So we just kept going and trying to work through it, and he continued to be sick all over. Ailments continued to be extreme fatigue, hot sweat at night, and back to the doctors we would go. And to another referral and yet another waiting room and another hospital. We went from primary care to North Shore to Children's Advocate. And we found more and more with each visit being referred somewhere else. So they checked his heart. He was sleeping so much. Maybe there's something wrong there with his heart. And his heart did show that there's something seemed a little off. So again, we had another referral and off to another doctor. Also, we still were having stomach problems after what we had already went through changing his diet. So we went for a test of the MRI of his stomach. He didn't like that so much, drinking all of that fluid, but we had to get it done and we had to find out. And come to find out, he had swollen lymph nodes, and he did have, enlargement in areas from inflammation. So back to the doctor on some other medication and referred us to an autoimmune specialist. They did a tabletop test where he was strapped on a table. I called him Hannibal Lecter, and he didn't think that was very funny, but they did a lot of tests to check his heart rate for when he stood up to when he laid down, like different position changes, hooking him up for sweat tests with electrodes all over. And this would determine what they thought the diagnosis really was on his autoimmune. And as you could see, his foot turning purple was definitely a circulation problem. So back to our primary or our advocate children's, and they would give us the actual results of that test. And that's when we found out that the heart problem was ultimately an autonomic disease called POTS, Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia Syndrome, which was very debilitating. As I'm reading about it and learning, all of these things all add up to everything that we've been seeing all year. He continues to sweat so much that he breaks out. He's very tired. He's very moody because he is exhausted. He is trying to drink fluids and try to get his body to move, but he's just too tired. So they suggested a bicycle, have it sitting next to him, and we got that, and making sure we had a heart monitor and an oxygen monitor because he needed to be checked. His sleeping patterns continued even though we were taking the salt sticks and the heart medicine, and we were trying to use compression socks for his circulation problems. I couldn't keep up, so I had to get a journal, and they just so happened to have a POTS journal, and it records specific to what we would need to be writing down to check with our doctors. He continues to decline and be more tired every day, sleeping most of the day, being awake for only 4 hours of a day. And so this is just not okay. He can't pass school. He was an honors student in all honors classes. So we had to get a 504 plan, and it's still difficult. He's always taking his pulse. We're always going back to the doctor. We're always checking and getting what we need done, from the allergy test to the GI to an emergency room because of the random fainting and throwing up vomit and throwing up blood. And he continues to suffer with this invisible disease that we had never heard of called POTS. And we're still discovering. And because he sleeps so much, our next referral and our next recording will be toward the new diagnosis that we may get in addition to his IBS, his GERD, his esophagitis and gastritis, and irritable bowel. we will probably find out that there is a sleeping disorder associated with that. So we're going for an overnight test and another day to do nap testing with him. And then we are following up with another specialist to get integrative medicine started for extra therapeutic support, as well as maybe physical therapy to begin after that, because his muscles are starting to really decline and he's having trouble just doing the basic things of getting up from the couch and walking. So I will update you when we have had those tests done, and God bless anyone who's going through the same kind of devastating, debilitating disorder that just took my child in a matter of time. They said it was onset, possibly from multiple things, COVID and mono, and the middle of his pubescent period all hitting at one time at the age of 14. Changed my kid to this. A child who's awake only 4 hours a day.